Often there are some highly anticipated results stemming from a clinical trial, and when those results are formally published, links to that article are rapidly shared and commented on. In this video, I'm going to explain how to monitor the sharing of those links by the professional healthcare community on Twitter, how to determine who is sharing them, and what the initial impressions of those results are. Here we're looking at an article that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine disclosing the results of the Emperor Reduced clinical trial that was originally published in late August last year. I want to look at the activity over the month following its being published. So let's create a dashboard. For my data set, I'm going to use the New England Journal of Medicine's web domain. I'll type URL : and then their domain. Then I'm going to select the date that the article was initially published, which was last year on the 27th of August. So that'll be my start date. Then I'm going to run this through the end of the following month. So we'll end it on September 30th. Then I'll choose my Create button. When we use a web domain as the data source, we'll populate the dashboard with all tweets that contained a link in them that point to, in this case, the New England Journal of Medicine's website. It doesn't matter what's said in those tweets. They just need to have a link in them that's pointing to this web domain. And look how many tweets there were over that time. But we're not interested in all those. We're interested in just that one article. So we're going to apply a filter. First, I'm going to come back to the article, and I'm going to go ahead and copy the URL to that web page. Then I'll come back to my dashboard. Now I'm going to select Add a Filter. Specifically, I'm going to choose a URL filter. Now, I have a couple of options here to either include or exclude. I want to include, which is the default, and then we have some other options. Include URLs containing, include these exact URLs, exact domains, or domains that end with, like .edu or something like that. I'm going to select this first choice, includes URLs containing, and then I'm going to paste that URL in here. The reason that I select contains is because if I select the exact URL, it'll be just that, the exact URL as I copied it. And there are oftentimes variations of a URL, like when the link originates in a newsletter, and all sorts of extra identifiers are then added on to the end of it. And that enables the publisher to differentiate where visitors came from to reach the article. So by selecting contains, we'll capture all of those variations. Now we'll go ahead and rerun this dashboard. Now we can see there were about 1,400 shares of that article by a little over 1,000 unique individual users. And in the engagement activity report, we can get a sense of what the stakeholder breakdown was of those who were sharing that link. And if I click on total while looking in this stakeholder view, it's easy to see that the doctors were the dominant group. No surprise there. And if I look at the network analysis, I can see those larger nodes. They're acting as activity hubs in the conversation. And these are hubs that are often highly influential parties who people naturally pay attention to. When new information is being shared, it may be from these parties where others hear about it first, and or they may be sharing their opinion on the new information, drawing even more engagement. On the influencer report, I may want to see who was sharing this article, and to do that, I'm going to click on the gear icon in the upper right-hand corner where my options and settings are. And I'm going to switch from the default simpler rank to tweets. This will rerun that section of the dashboard, populating it with those individuals and organizations that sent a tweet containing a link to that article. They're listed in the order of who shared it most frequently. And by default, it'll be a top 100 list. But you can change that if you want to. I can also get more specific and click on the doctor button just to see who the doctors were in the top 100. And if I want to know what any one of them had to say in their tweets, I just have to click on their Twitter handle. And up comes our profile card where I can choose transcript. Once the transcript appears, I can read through the messaging from that one individual, see what their thoughts and opinions were, who it was that they were talking to. On the engaging tweets report, this is where I can see those tweets sharing that link that were receiving the most significant engagement from others. And as I scroll through and read, I notice Voss right here. An amazing study. And I can see that his tweet was engaged with 45 times. And to learn more about those engagements, when I hover over any tweet in a transcript like this, you can see some options that I get up here in the right. The first one being history. I'll choose that. Selecting history will open a drawer from the bottom of the screen. And when it populates, I'll see the history of that tweet over time. And up here, you notice that it says there were 54 retweets, quotes, and replies, whereas the previous view said there were 45 engagements. But that's because the previous view was limited by the date range of the dashboard, whereas this figure in this new view looks at the tweet in its entirety. And all of these dots on here, those are the individuals that were engaging with that tweet. And there's lots of blue dots, meaning lots of doctors. And if I want to see what all that engagement was, then I can click on the grid icon in the upper right and change to what we call table view. Here we'll see the actual tweets. And in the far left column, we'll see the type of engagement, simple retweets, replies, quote tweets, and such. And at the top here, we've got Voss with his original tweet, and everybody else then reacting to it. And at the top of each column, we've got some filter boxes if you just want to quickly explore some things on the fly, like was there a certain person engaging? Dr. Gulati. So just like when you would monitor the general conversation around a clinical trial name, you can also monitor the reaction even if the name isn't being mentioned at all by tracking links pointing to specific URLs like we did here. And all this will help you to gauge the reaction of healthcare professionals as individuals or as a group. And you may discover some strong new voices in the crowd that you had previously been unaware of. Certainly, you'll be able to assess whether or not the results were properly understood. And with all the insights, you'll be able to lay the groundwork for successful messaging going forward.